All right. This is a video on basically diet and what I eat and what I do. I've had a lot of people ask me about this because I have a very overall excellent metabolic health in many ways. And I'm just going to give you some facts and figures. And this is based on tests within the last couple weeks. So this is a present reflection of my health. My blood pressure is generally 100 over 65. The last test, it was exactly 100 over 65. My weight is 118. I'm actually a little heavier than I normally have been my whole life. Usually I was 115 or even 110 sometimes. So my BMI is close to perfect, 20.92. I'm in a very healthy BMI range. I have very little to none to no visceral fat. I'll give you the exact figure on that. 4. That was my score on visceral fat, so almost very, very low. My oxygen saturation is 100. My metabolic age is 26. Okay. My A1C is 4.7, which is excellent. My insulin is 4. My average blood sugar basically, and I keep track of it, is under 100 generally. So that's excellent. My triglycerides are 47, which is very low and very healthy. My HDL is high, which is good cholesterol. It's 100. My HCl LDL ratio is excellent. My omega-3 is excellent. So my omega-3 to omega-6 ratio is excellent. And by the way, they're balanced because you don't want to go too high on omega-3 and not enough omega-6 either. You do need a little bit of omega-6, but healthy omega-6, like evening primrose oil, for example. But what happens these days is people get way too much omega-6 and not enough omega-3. So you actually want it the other way around. You want way more omega-3 than omega-6. So that's just to give you some markers. I'm not going to read you all my test results, but my liver function is excellent. My kidney function is excellent. My blood count and my blood levels and everything are good. So generally speaking, I'm very healthy. I do have autoimmune, and to be clear, I have autoimmune not because of my current diet. I have autoimmune because I haven't always been this healthy. And unfortunately, there was a period and a time in my life where I was not healthy. I was not as knowledgeable in the area of health and diet as I am now. And I wish I knew then what I know now, because I would have avoided a lot of problems for myself, which is the other reason why I'm sharing this information, because I really want to help people avoid getting autoimmune and other metabolic illnesses, diabetes. I have a genetic heart condition. I know you might have seen that or might have heard that or whatever, but I was born with it. It is not like I am doing everything that I could possibly do right to not have heart disease. I just happen to have a genetic problem with my heart, but to my credit, I'm doing so much right that the risk is way down compared to what it could be if I wasn't being so healthy, if that makes sense. So, there is a gene factor to any illness, and you're given the body that you have. So if you're predisposed to something, that is inherent, and it can be avoided. And if you're really good, but unfortunately, I wasn't really good my whole life. I was really bad in my teenage years specifically, and in my early to mid-teens, and later 37, I would say, is when I really did a shift on my diet and really got into naturopath health and everything else, because I did the purification rundown again at that point. And I felt so good, and I was so shocked at how bad I didn't realize how bad I felt until I felt better. So I just swung the opposite way and started going really healthy. And gradually, as I studied more and learned more, I got better and better and better through a lot of trial and error. I've tried every diet, just so you know, and I've given the diets a substantial amount of time. I'm talking, months, not just a week or two. I've tried vegan, I've tried carnivore, I've tried keto, healthy keto, low carb. I've tried paleo, I've tried autoimmune paleo, I've tried every diet that I know of in many ways, raw vegan. So I can tell you what worked and what didn't for me. But it took a lot of trial and error to get to the point that I'm at, where I really found the sweet spot for my body. to optimize my health, all things considered. So as much as I'm challenged in certain ways and it's taken a lot of work, I've done a lot right to get to this point, and I wanted to share that. I do want to say this is not, I'm not doing a video telling you what to eat. So here's one thing I have learned in helping others and working with others and in my own experience. Everybody's body and system is different. The reason I feel diets don't work is not just the fact that there's a lot of temptations. Right now, there is one factor above anything that you have to say to have a good diet, and that is discipline. Because trying to live healthy and eat healthy in today's age is like trying to be a virgin in a brothel. Okay, like it's difficult. Okay, it's difficult. There's a lot of temptation everywhere you look between breads, pastas, sugars, carbs, uh, bad seed oils and vegetables and fried foods and preservatives and you name it. It's so easy and tempting to not eat healthy and so much more convenient to eat unhealthy, and it's a real problem. So the one thing you have to have above anything is discipline, and not just discipline as in because I told you to do something or someone else told you to do something. You have to have your own reality on your body and your own understanding of what your body needs and what it doesn't need and what's good for it and what's not and why. So my purpose in this video is to give you facts and data, not to tell you what you should eat. There's also the point of preference. Some things that I eat that are very healthy, you may not like at all. So, and some people have sensitivities to the things that others do not, depending on their microbiome, depending on their genetics, depending on their lineage, etc. So again, diet is a very personal thing. Likewise, it's also like religion and politics, and there's a lot of passionate arguments and conflicting information and confusing opinions and so on about it. So again, I really feel that people, if they have the data and understand what is in their food, what they're doing when they eat, what it does to their body, etc., they can make informed decisions and they will predominantly be correct. Okay. So on that note, in terms of like what should we be eating as a species? Like what are the actual biological facts, not opinion, not up to what the doctors say or don't say, or what dietitians push or don't push, or what religious preference you have, or how your feelings are. But the biological facts of your body are that we as a species have certain enzymes that are designed to break down tuber roots and plants. Okay, so that's one datum for you. We actually have inherently in our enzymes to break down certain fibers and plants and stuff. The other thing you should know, or you probably already know, but I'm just going to point it out newly, is we have canines. Okay, so teeth wise, we have canines, but we also have molars. And so canines and incisors are actually for like biting down and ripping food, as in carnivore. That is a carnivore trait, like cats and lions, etc. That is a carnivore meat eater trait. But molars are actually like rabbits and cows, etc. trait to grind and break down fiber. So we structurally in our teeth are designed for both meat and vegetables. Okay. Um, that's another datum for you. So there is one thing that's interesting about the human race, which is that you're depending on your genes. Like most mammals, when they mature, they don't have their enzyme to break down milk ceases to exist. Humans are unique in that we can retain the ability to break down lactose, but not all of us do. So you've heard of people being lactose intolerant. It's simply because their genetic line, they don't have that enzyme. But some people, they never lose that enzyme. So it's a mixed bag in terms of who can digest dairy or not, genetically based on lactose and the enzyme to break down lactose. The other thing is we are designed to eat our both fatty acids from plants and from animals. So we actually are able to break down both. Humans, unlike most mammals, we also lost our ability to produce uricase, which uricase basically breaks down uric acid from purines in meat. So we actually are prone to getting too much uric acid if we eat a lot of meat or too much meat. And it also, again, depends on the body. So men are more prone to this than women. Women can handle a lot more than men. So men more often get gout, which is one thing caused by uric acid. So that's an interesting thing about being strictly carnivore. Some people can have difficulty with it because of this lack of ability to break down uric acid. And meat tends to make you very acidic too. So in terms of eating strictly carnivore, there are downsides depending on your genetics. So that can be difficult for some people. And it also indicates that we're not pure carnivore. Another thing is our jaw motion, by the way, back to our mouth. So our teeth go up and down, which is for ripping and tearing, but our molars, our jaw can also go back and forth, which is a trait of a plant eater. So to grind and break down fiber. So our jaw structure, not just the teeth, the way our jaw structure is designed is for omnivore. Stomach acidity. So the human pH, the human stomach is actually very much closer to acidic, closer to a carnivore, which helps to kill pathogens in meat, relative to herbivores, which tend to have a weaker acidity in their stomach for plant digestion. Our intestines. So humans have an intermediate intestine length in terms of our small intestine. So strict carnivores have a shorter small intestine, and strict herbivores have a longer small intestine for fermenting and breaking down plant fibers. We are in the middle, so that definitely indicates we're suited for mixed diet. The colon, again, we have a colon similar to herbivores for fermenting plant fiber, but it's smaller and less complex than an actual ruminant, like ruminants, like cows and stuff. It isn't as complex as that. So it suggests we can eat fiber, but we are not specialized. Our system is not specialized to handle fiber. And I want to make a point on fiber. Your body cannot break down and use fiber per se. It doesn't actually benefit, fiber does not benefit your body in that way like protein benefits your body. Your cells don't use fiber at all. What your body does do with fiber is it breaks it down because the bacteria in your gut break it down. It actually benefits the bacteria in your gut. It doesn't actually benefit your cells per se and your genetics per se. Does that make sense? So you have a whole colony of microbiome in your stomach that feed on this fiber, soluble and insoluble, and that helps them grow, stay healthy, and stay balanced, and they protect you in turn. They help keep you alive and protect your body, and you feed them, and it's like a win-win, synergistic sort of situation, right? So that's just another datum for you, because you will hear, well, we don't actually need fiber to survive in terms of our body, and that's true. But you do need your microbiome, and your microbiome need fiber, soluble and insoluble, to live. So it's important in that way. So in terms of what we know from past, okay, from our ancestors, stone stools show evidence of like fossilized protein and animal consumption. There is definitely fossilized plaque show teeth had starch and meat proteins in them. Brain evolution. So the expansion of the human brain, something like 2 million years ago, correlates with an increased access to nutrient-dense animal foods, meat, marrow, and fish. You might have heard this before, but omega-3, for example, which is found predominantly in fatty fish, but also in meats, is absolutely critical to brain function, cognitive health, and a healthy, brain and intelligence. So these go hand in hand. So you won't find that in fiber, and you won't find that in most plants. You will find some of it in spirulina, but the primary source and the primary source of the nutrients that we need for mental health is in meat. The other thing is you have, grinding stones and different tools we've found from our ancestors definitely indicated that they were eating meat. Okay, so meat has always been, and I want to emphasize this, meat has always been a part of the human diet from our ancestors. And plants and tubers and stuff have also always been part of the human diet. The only exception to that is grains and wheats and stuff came in way later. Like they are actually relatively new to the food chain. Our bodies, genetically, many of us haven't actually adapted to them fully. So that's why grains and gluten tend to be a problem. And I want to also mention that nobody, whether you're celiac, gluten intolerant, or not, nobody, nobody's stomach can properly fully break down gluten. So gluten is unquestionably a problem for everybody. It's just the degree of that problem depends on the health of the individual, their microbiome, their genes, etc. But I just want to make a point of that because even if you think you're fine on bread and gluten, you're actually not. It's just that you may not be having the same, it's the degree of unhealthiness that we're talking about, right? So celiac is the far end of the pendulum where you literally, celiac, if you have celiac, it's very serious. You cannot touch the stuff. If you have autoimmune, you really need to stay away from it, and most of the time strictly so. Like in my case, I'm not celiac at all, but gluten, as a protein in glutens, it really wreaks havoc for my antibodies and my immune system and flares my system and causes a lot of damage to my thyroid. Same with milk. I'm not lactose intolerant at all, but the proteins in dairy, because dairy is actually inflammatory generally for anybody, but particularly for autoimmune, dairy tends to trigger my autoimmune as well. So again, a lot of diet also depends on your genes, your microbiome, and the health of your gut, and what your body can handle and what it can't. Okay. We also, so true carnivores, they don't have any enzymes to break down plant proteins, and they can't synthesize vitamin C. True herbivores, that was true carnivores. True herbivores, like cows and rabbits and stuff, they have long fermentation chambers in their gut. They have a lot of ability to break down plants and fibers, but they have a very inefficient protein digestion without plants. So they are the other way. We are kind of right down the middle a little bit. We can also synthesize vitamin C, and we need a lot of B12 from B12 from meat. So people who are vegetarian struggle to get vitamin B12, which is a critical nutrient for your diet and your health, as well as heme iron. So yes, you can get iron from plants, but it's not the same. It's not bioavailable like it is in actual meat. And you need vitamin C and other things to help break it down and absorb it. So even if you're taking, even if you're eating a lot of plants with iron, you can still be deficient because your body just can't break it down properly. Okay, so that's kind of just purely the genetics of it, okay? So regardless of whoever's opinion is on diet and whatever we want to say about it, we are designed, and that just cannot be argued, to eat both meat and vegetables, all right? Now, the other thing I want you to know is that blood sugar is a very big factor. So in terms of carbs and how many carbs you eat or don't, or how many carbs we should eat or not, having too much blood sugar from lots of carbs in your diet, having a carb heavy diet, is very destructive to systemically very destructive. If you're constantly spiking your insulin, constantly eating and constantly raising your blood sugar, that is very damaging. And I could really do a whole video on blood sugar because there's so much to be said about it and there's so much to know about it. And you can't just, it's not black and white like never eat glucose or never eat carbs. And it's not black and white like always eat carbs. It really is not, because it depends on your activity level. It depends on what kind of carbs you're talking about. It depends on how much your body can process or use it. And just to keep this simple in a few words here, if you are very, very physically active, you can handle a bit more carb, and you actually need a bit more carb. If you are under a lot of stress, and I mean healthy carbs, and anytime I say eat carbs, I'm talking about healthy carbs like sweet potato or broccoli or artichoke. I'm not talking about bread, okay? So I'm talking about healthy carbs when I talk about carbs. And yes, I'm talking about organic bread is not healthy too. It really, generally speaking, bread is not healthy. Like, I don't care how whole wheat, whole grain. Yeah, you can do your own research on it. It is not healthy. yes, it has vitamins and stuff in it, but your body can't absorb them properly, and you can get those same nutrients in far higher quantities for with far less damage and side effects from other foods than bread. Okay, so it is not a necessary staple to anyone's diet. And I'm sure I'll get some flack for that, but I don't care. I've done my research. You can do yours. So in terms of carbs, when I say carbs, I mean healthy, nutrient dense carbs. But also, like, if you're not active and you're completely sedentary, that those carbs and that blood sugar just turns to a problem in your system, because you just start glycating your blood, and glycation is like, it creates damage. It literally, like, ages you faster. It mucks up your system. It can damage it can affect and damage multiple organs. It's very hard on your kidneys, your pancreas, your liver, etc. Causes visceral fat, causes diabetes, causes PCOS. Like, all those symptoms are too much carbs, high triglycerides. This is all too much carbs and too much sugar. And it's not just sugar. It's too much carbs in your diet, okay? That's important, because, some people can say, well, I don't do any sugar. Well, if you're doing breads or rice or high carbs, you are getting sugar. And I personally have worn a CGM and seen how high even some of the most apparently innocent foods can raise your blood sugar. You would be amazed. Carbs, at the end of the day, carbs and sugar, they both turn into the same exact thing in your system in terms of glucose and blood sugar spikes. So if you're very sedentary, you do need to watch your carb intake. And there is a reason why keto is so popular. It's not just a fad. There's actually scientific proof that backs why it's so healthy for you in many ways. At the same time, if you're, like I said, extremely athletic, or during certain times of your menstrual cycle, like the luteal phase, for example, for women, or if you're under heavy stress, you tend to need a little bit more carb to support your body, okay? So, and by a little more carb, I mean a little more. I don't mean pendulum swing to carbs full time. So this is just something you have to kind of find out your own system and balance for yourself. But I wanted to communicate it because it's an important point. Generally, lower carb diet is better for everybody. Really low carb can be very healthy under certain circumstances, but in certain cases, for supporting your activity level and so on, you might need a little bit more carb. Zero carb long term can lower your thyroid for women, for example, and it can be hard on your system during certain periods of your cycle, etc. So it's all context. I think context is very important in this, which is why I'm mentioning it. Carnivore diet. So I tried the carnivore diet. I love the carnivore diet. I find it to be a very powerful and amazing tool as a really ideal elimination diet. So for me, I was highly inflamed. My autoimmune antibodies were out the roof. And I switched, and I couldn't get them down despite keto and low carb and healthy and just trying everything. I couldn't get them down. And finally, I went carnivore for a time period, and things completely chilled out and turned around. And I was then able to reintroduce certain things and find out what was causing the most damage for my body. Bread and grains being one of them. Surprisingly, soy and corn fall into that category of grains too. And for me, they do. GMO is definitely a problem, but not just GMO, just soy and grains in general there's crossbreeding that can occur, and they're not, none of them are really innocent, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So for me, it kind of helps me to isolate what's going on and what was wrong. And it's really hard to isolate what's going wrong when you're eating many things and you're trying to figure out, okay, well, what's causing trouble for my system. The other thing about carnivore diet is I don't recommend doing a lot of dairy, because dairy is inflammatory. And if you're trying to handle autoimmune, definitely stay away from dairy, because it tends to be inflammatory for everybody, and it's especially inflammatory for people who have autoimmune. Now, that being said about the carnivore diet, I don't actually recommend it long term. I don't. And here's why. Going back to what I said about the microbiome, if you go flat out carnivore forever, you start to lose microbiome in your stomach that are actually beneficial. and you don't want to do that. Now, there are exceptions. If you are really badly autoimmune, and there are some people who have serious and severe autoimmune reactions from foods, you might have to stay carnivore. That's why some people swear by it and are like, I will never go back. And as long as they stay carnivore, they're going to be okay. But by and large, I don't feel that's true for everybody or most people even. I think it is important to get some healthy fiber in your diet and also some moderation of healthy greens and stuff, and alkalinizing, like non-acidic vegetables and stuff in your diet to balance the acidity of meats and to feed your microbiome. So that is my experience, my take, my research on it. One thing I don't feel has been fully addressed or acknowledged in the carnivore realm, as much as I support them 1000%, is the factor of digestion health, gut health, and microbiome. I don't feel that that has probably been addressed or answered as to, well, okay, well, what happens if you just take away all soluble and insoluble fiber, right? And in terms of regularity and what have you. So some people can handle it better than others, but I think generally speaking, the data is the data. You have microbiome; they require certain fibers to stay healthy and to stay balanced. And if you take that away, you start losing them, and they are a major factor in your immune system. Most of your immune system starts in the gut. So I feel that carnivore long term is not a good way to go. And again, everybody needs to feel their own way in these things. Okay. So those are my experiences and takes on my diet. Now I'm going to just tell you what I eat or what I ended up going to, because I can't say that I'm paleo. I can't say that I'm keto. I can't say that I'm carnivore either. I'm kind of, Adrian and I, my husband and I, are actually a bit of a mix of all. So we do paleo in terms of grass-fed, grass-finished, organic, no processed foods. And by processed foods, I mean anything that has more than one ingredient, or within reason. If you see something that says flax seeds and nuts, okay, that's okay. But when I say processed foods, I mean when you start seeing other ingredients that you can't pronounce or are not naturally occurring, or they're derived from natural, but they're overly processed, those are problems and they can cause damage. Even natural foods that are processed heavily lose nutrient values and tend to turn into pure sugar when you eat them because they've been broken down so much. So they're actually void of the same nutrients as the whole food is. Okay, so we eat whole foods, natural foods, grass finished, not just grass fed beef, and that's lamb and buffalo and cow for us. And grass finished is important because when they say grass fed, it's actually misleading. That means if they can kind of, it's like there's a loophole in it. They can feed the cow grass for a little bit. As long as they do a little bit, they can call it grass fed, even if it's primarily fed corn and soy and stuff and GMO. So it's really bad. It's deceiving. So we do grass finished meats, very organic, very clean. Same with our vegetables and fruits. Realize anytime you want to go the route of not organic, you're eating pesticides, you're eating antibiotics from the meat, which means you might as well be taking antibiotics, and all of these things are going to destroy your microbiome. You're eating GMO and corn and soy that you're trying to avoid in your diet, but you're eating it through the cow or the animal that you're eating. So it really is important, and the nutrient value of non-organic food is very different than an animal properly raised in its natural eating environment, if you will. So that is important. So we eat eggs. I do eat sauerkraut. I eat avocados. I love olives, Kalamata olives and green olives. I eat them a little bit like candy. I do a lot of olive oil. We do a lot of olive oil. I do a lot of sardines. Now, not everyone's going to like sardines. I get it. It's not really so much that I'm in love with them per se, but they are fast, handy, and extremely healthy food. So like my body thrives on it, even if it isn't my preference like pizza would be if I could eat it, right? So, but it's very healthy. So if you can tolerate it, I highly recommend them. They're amazing for fasting and they're amazing for helping boost you into ketosis as a hot tip. They really are. I've done sardine fasts. They're amazing. I do water kefir. I can't do dairy. I do coconut kefir. And again, you have to be careful about emulsifiers and other things in coconut milks and coconut kefir. So I always avoid that kind of stuff. And yeah, my husband does very clean, high quality cheese and dairy products sometimes. So he can do dairy, I can't. But we pretty much stay away completely from grains of any kind. We don't do a lot of nuts at all. And the other thing I want to mention is there's certain plants and stuff that we don't do even though they're on the paleo diet, because they're high in oxalates and lectins. So there's plants inherently can be very healthy, like spinach, but it's actually not. It's a contradictory, it's a bit of an anomaly and a contradiction because there's lots of oxalates in spinach that can cause oxalates, which can basically, they're like little crystals that can scrape your intestinal lining and also rob you of, they bind to calcium and stuff, and they can pull minerals out of your stomach, and cause problems. And some people are extremely sensitive to these, and it's a real problem for them. So there are plants you need to watch for. Almonds are very high in oxalates. Rhubarb are very high in oxalates. Spinach is very high in oxalates. You don't want to do those because they're actually defeating the purpose. You're not getting the nutrients you think you're getting because your body can't actually absorb them properly. Same with lectins, similar problem. They also interrupt your stomach and cause damage and prevent absorption of minerals. Their lectins are found in legumes, especially not when they're not pressure cooked. Nightshades, tomatoes, potatoes, nightshade vegetables, peppers and stuff. So we do a little bit of those, but we aren't heavy on them. Cucumber skin. If you're going to do cucumbers, take the skin off and de-seed them as much as you can to reduce the problem with that. With these, they're basically defense mechanisms. Lectins and oxalates are defense mechanisms in the plant to, they're toxins for they don't want to be eaten. They don't want to be attacked. So it's a protective mechanism for them, and it can be harmful for your digestion, especially if you're sensitive to it, especially if you don't have a really good microbiome to handle it, especially if you do a lot of it. So also the dose makes the poison for anything, right? Even something healthy can be poisonous if you do too much of it and you throw other things out, right? So it's also the dose that makes a big difference. I also practice restricted eating. So I won't eat breakfast generally. I eat around late morning to early afternoon as my first meal. And then I stop eating around 6 or 7 o'clock at night. I try to eat in a window that's between 6 and 8 hours, generally 6 hours, sometimes 8 hours. And I try to fast every now and again pretty regularly. And every few months, 2 months or so, I will do a long fast for like 4 or 5 days, to just reset and clean out my system. And fasting is one of the most powerful and brilliant tools I have ever used to try to handle and repair my body. Like, absolutely brilliant. And restricted eating as well. It's almost more important. The restricted eating window is almost more important than what you eat. Not really, but it is in many ways, because what happens is when you do restricted eating, you give your body a chance outside of the eating window to start repairing, to start building, to start doing other things. If you're constantly eating, you're constantly spiking your insulin and your blood sugar, and your body's constantly in emergency trying to like get it down, get it down, get it down. All your blood and stuff and all the energy and attention of your body is going to your stomach constantly. So it's neglecting and not able to get to detox and other things. On top of the fact that it just never gives your body a break and it doesn't need that much food. People eat way, way, way too much, generally speaking. Our ancestors did not have breakfast, lunch, and dinner and access to a fridge and Uber Eats and restaurants every 5 minutes. Like, this is not how our ancestors ate. Our eating habits are so unhealthy by and large. It's not even funny if you compare it to how our bodies are designed. No other species on Earth eats the way humans have now started to eat because of this modern world. And this is not how we naturally ate before either, okay? And the other thing that's very funny about the human body and people is no other species eats things that are not natural. We are the only creature that eats processed foods invented in the lab, synthetically put together and overly processed. This is a very strange habit that we've somehow come to think is normal, and it's not. And another thing I want to just mention is no matter what your opinion on diet, there are some things that people in the naturopath, functional medicine, any good doctor that is interested in root cause, restoring balance, and restoring health, optimal health, generally agree that olive oils, uh, rich dark greens, well-balanced vegetables and proteins, nutrient-dense meats, grass-fed, organic, clean foods, whole foods, no bad seed oils or vegetable oils at all, no processed foods, no fast foods, no sugars, definitely not processed sugars and whatever. Like if you're gonna have a few berries or something, that's different. By the way, for dessert, that's generally kind of what we do if we do any kind of dessert, is like low glycemic, low sugar berries, and I usually put some inulin in it or coconut, shredded unsweetened coconut flakes to try to balance and prevent blood sugar spikes. Another trick for you. Basically, just good, clean food, and olive oils and avocados and stuff like that. Onions and stuff are healthy, garlic, etc. Those are generally agreed upon to be good, okay? Fermented foods is generally agreed upon to be good. There are some exceptions, and again, this is where everybody's body is different. If you are prone to histamine reactions, lemon, avocado, fermented foods, those are going to potentially trigger or make worse histamine reactions. So again, everybody has to you have to feel your own way. If you're reacting to something, you're reacting to it. And it just happens to be that your body can't handle that thing. So you just have to be aware of that. There's things you can do to repair or improve your digestion, but it doesn't negate that you might have a problem right now, right? So everybody's system is different. Another trick you can do, just in closing, if you eat foods in a certain sequence, you can also lower your blood sugar spikes. And a rule I have is to not eat carby foods 2 times or more in a day. Like if I'm going to have some berries or something, I try to do it at one time in the day, like with my biggest meal. So another trick you can do is eat fiber and protein and fats before you eat anything that's kind of higher carb. So, for example, starting your meal with some leafy dark greens and a salad with maybe some olive oil and lemon juice. I make my own dressing, by the way. We make everything from scratch, so we don't get anything that has nasty things in it. We basically make a lot of things here, or we get them whole, if that makes sense. And on the olives that I eat, I always make sure they don't have vegetable or seed oil like sunflower. So even when you are buying clean food, you have to watch for the ingredients, even in organic stores, as another note. Okay, so but what you can do is you can eat like a salad or something, and then the meat, and then like meat and fat, and then maybe have like a dark chocolate with a little bit of coconut sugar in or no sugar. I tend to do Lily's chocolate, which has stevia, which is the best. We use stevia, allulose, and monk fruit a lot for any kind of sweetener. Not that we eat sweet stuff a lot, but when we do, that's my go-to because it's really good for your insulin and your blood sugar, and it doesn't harm your microbiome. So it's all around a great substitute if you do have a sweet tooth or if you do want to do something sweet. But you can have a little bit of like dark chocolate, which is lower in sugar. Ideally something that's like coconut sugar or more clean sugar. Again, in sparingly. I'm not saying eat a lot of it either. Like you can go too far with any kind of sugar, eating coconut sugar, because it is sugar and it still does the same thing at the end of the day as regular sugar. After your meal, and that will reduce after the fiber and the proteins and the fats, because that will reduce your blood sugar spike. So my dessert, for example, you can also like mix fiber into your dessert or what have you to kind of reduce or avoid sugar spikes. So I'll put inulin or coconut flakes, like I said, with some berries, a few berries, and some allulose if I need it, if I want it a little bit sweet, as my dessert. And it's wonderful, it's delicious. And I'll put coconut kefir in it sometimes. And it's more satisfying to me than any kind of dessert you can get in a restaurant. One thing you will notice when you're trying to go healthy, at the end of the day, when you do start getting healthy, you will notice such a difference that you won't want to go back. Right? For me, like a dessert in a restaurant they're so sweet and so full of sugar that it's a real turnoff. I actually can't, it's like sickly sweet to me. And I'm shocked that people eat this stuff because it's horrible to me. But I used to be one of those people. So, like, when you get off of sugar and when you get off of carbs and when you lose that craving, if you will, your body's tolerance for it comes way down and you start to realize how bad it is. So that's one thing. It does get easier and you do get less inclined to want to eat it the healthier you get, because once you are not stuck, once you stop being so toxic, your body starts to heal. And when it heals, going back to it, you're like, oh my God, get that away from me. It's kind of like, and people who have smoked before will understand this, if you've ever smoked and then you go back to taking your first puff of a cigarette, you have the same bad reaction that you did when you first took a cigarette, because your body's just so cleaned up and healthy that that poison is immediately rejected. It's a similar thing with food. When you stop eating unhealthy food, your body will definitely naturally reject and won't want the unhealthy food. So that's just a pointer for you. I hope this video has helped. It's very long, but I wanted to cover everything, and I really hope it's useful for you and answers some questions for you and can be used for you to make your own decisions on what your diet should be and what the most optimum diet is. And again, this is what I do. We do, by the way, do a lot of apple cider vinegar and cinnamon. I do that too, sometimes just in sparkling water, plain water, as my go-to drink. Drink a lot of water. We take electrolytes. I will do a separate video on supplements because I think that's an important factor and aspect to diet, that you can't do too much and you can't do too little or it's a problem. But that's its own video and it's a whole video in and of itself. So I'll do that separately. But there you go.